Alright, in this video, I'm going to go over my thesis on why I believe that meme stocks, or GME, AMC, bbby in particular, are about to go on a run. So to start that, let's look at the S&P 500, which I believe we're about to see some nice continuation on this move up to the monthly trigger at 394, or at least towards the monthly trigger at 394. So we can see that SPY broke through the daily trigger, which is the blue line, on Friday, October 21st, and price moves through the daily trigger can sometimes lead to massive continuation, like we saw here. And then once the hourly trigger crosses above the daily trigger, price moves up to attack the next trigger. And so if we just zoom in on this time period, price broke above the daily trigger, and then the hourly trigger crossed, and price attacked the monthly trigger. And so we have a very similar situation over here, where price moved above the daily trigger. Now if the hourly trigger can come up and cross above the daily trigger, then most likely we're going to have the S&P 500 making a continuation up towards this monthly trigger at 394. And so if we have a bullish outlook on SPY, then let's see how GME has performed in the past when SPY had some rallies. So let's go back to here when we had this trigger cross. This is July 19th. So February, May, July, and we can see that although GME did have this dip, shortly after the SPY had this trigger cross, GME was able to go on a really nice move towards the upside as SPY filled this upside pocket. So we know that GME definitely benefits from the market moving up, and so if we're about to have a nice little rally from the market towards the monthly trigger, then we should be able to see GME having a really nice move upwards as well. And we can see that GME has actually significantly been outperforming the market ever since about September 7th. GME has essentially moved sideways while the market has took a rather large tumble. If we use our handy price range tool, we can see that from September 9th till today, the market is down about 6%. And if we look at GME, you can see that we've been trading sideways. So let's get into the Nimoy setup on GME. So GME, as you can see, has been in a sideways consolidation phase for a long time. If I remove everything else besides the daily trigger, so you can see how when price is above the daily trigger, the daily trigger acts as a support. Even if price falls below, it acts as a trampoline to spring price back above, as long as there's positive daily velocity, which are these blue bars. So you can see we had really nice positive daily velocity here, and so when price came down to attack the daily trigger, it got lifted again. And we can see the same thing happen here. Price actually did break through the daily trigger, but we had the weekly trigger just underneath, the monthly trigger just underneath, offering support, and price made another bounce. And then price was essentially riding this daily trigger all the way up until here, when price finally broke below it, and then we've been below the daily trigger ever since then. And this has been a kind of bearish period for GME. But what we can notice is from September 7th all the way now to October 21st, so over the course of a month and a half, let's remove the daily trigger and simply look at the daily velocity. We can see that over this time period, the daily velocity, the negative daily velocity, has become significantly less negative. So the more negative the daily velocity is, the harder it is for price to make a push towards the upside. But we can see, even if we zoom into the predicted print for Monday, it's only a negative 0.08. And throughout this whole time period, we were dealing with negative 3.9, negative 3.4, negative 2.4, negative 1.8, negative 17 cents, and now the predicted print for Monday is negative 0.8. So things are looking better from the daily velocity perspective. Now, the less negative the daily velocity is, the more of a chance price can break above the daily trigger. And whenever a stock or an index breaks above the daily trigger, it usually leads to continuation to the upside, especially if the hourly trigger, which is the purple line, crosses above the daily trigger as well. Now the next target for GME would be this monthly trigger right here, which is currently at 29.98, and we have the weekly trigger above that at 30.63. Now weekly velocity, we had been dealing with negative weekly velocity, but that has been repairing itself over the past 4 weeks, and as you can see, it's even going to be less negative for the upcoming week. So even on a more macro outlook, things are getting better on the weekly level. So now for GME, we did pop above the hourly trigger on Friday, October 21st, And so there's a really good chance that we could see some sort of continuation to the daily trigger. Thing is, as the hourly velocity keeps climbing and gets more and more positive, and the daily velocity, the negative daily velocity, keeps dropping, gets closer and closer to positive, then we can have a break above the daily trigger. The negative daily velocity will turn positive, so we'll start working with positive daily velocity again. And you can see when we have positive daily velocity, right, over this time period, we had mostly positive daily velocity, and price moved up from 22 towards 44. It actually topped at 47 on this day, and so that's more than 100% increase in price. So positive daily velocity will do really good things for GME, and this is the closest we've been to flipping daily velocity from negative to positive. And I mean, you can just see it. It's kind of obvious when you look at it. The buyers are getting stronger and stronger at these levels, and the sellers, which is shown in the negative daily velocity, are certainly getting weaker and weaker. And so as soon as price can break above this daily trigger, we had a chance here to break it, but you could see the daily velocity, the negative daily velocity was still negative, telling us that the daily trigger wants to act as resistance, and it pushed price back down. But now, if the hourly velocity keeps increasing to the upside, and we get some really strong positive hourly velocity, then price should be able to break above this daily trigger, which can lead to acceleration, it can lead to positive daily velocity, and it could lead to an attack of the monthly trigger, in which case when that does happen, I'll be posting a update at that point. So, I think the market's about to rally. I think GME, now above the hourly trigger, is about to be able to make a run for the daily trigger, currently at 26.38. And when it does, I think this time we'll be able to break above. And once price breaks above, we're going to look for the hourly trigger, purple line, to cross above the daily trigger to confirm that price is about to move towards a monthly trigger at just around $30.